They burned her invitation at dusk, laughing as the ashes fell like snow at her feet. By midnight, the Alpha King stood at her door. Elara had always known she was invisible. In a house full of silk and silver, she moved like a shadow, quiet, obedient, forgotten. The mating ceremony was meant for women with names worth remembering, not for a girl who scrubbed floors and slept beside cold stone walls. Still, when the sealed letter arrived with her name pressed in royal wax, hope dared to breathe inside her. Hope didn't survive the fire. Her stepsisters watched the parchment curl and blacken, taking her future with it, certain fate could be erased with flame. Elara believed them. She wiped her hands clean of ash and prepared for another night of silence, unaware that destiny does not burn so easily. As the moon climbed higher, something ancient woke in the mountains. A bond shattered. A king turned his back on 1,000 waiting brides. When the knock came slow, deliberate, unstoppable, it didn't just shake the door. It cracked the lie Elara had lived her whole life. Because the man waiting outside wasn't looking for a servant, an omega or a forgotten girl. He was looking for his mate, and fate had finally found her ashes of the invitation. The invitation burned too fast. Elara stood frozen in the servants' corridor, the smell of sinned parchment curling into her lungs, watching the last glowing edge crumble between her stepsisters' fingers. The firelight kissed their smiles, gold, cruel, satisfied, victorious. "Oops," Mira said sweetly, flicking ash to the floor like it was nothing more than dust. "Looks like the wind caught it." "The wind," Lisa cooed, laughing. "So careless of you, Elara. The mating ceremony is tonight. You should have guarded it better." Elara's fingers trembled. That letter had been her first proof, her only proof that she existed beyond these walls. Cream parchment embossed with the Alpha King's seal. Midnight ink spelling her name, Elara Moonfall. An invitation to the great hall where fates were chosen and bonds were sealed. Her invitation. Gone. Their laughter echoed down the corridor as they swept past her, silks whispering, perfume heavy as poison. The corridor felt suddenly too small, the stone walls pressing in, reminding her of every year she had spent hidden in shadows, dressed in gray, fed on leftovers, taught to bow her head and swallow her voice. "Please," Elara whispered, the word escaping before she could stop it. "It was mine." Mira paused, turned slowly and leaned close. "You," she scoffed, "an omega with no wolf, no rank, no future. You really thought the Alpha King would look twice at you?" Lysa leaned in too, her breath warm against Elara's ear. "Be grateful we saved you the humiliation. The ceremony is for chosen women." Then they were gone. Elara slid down the wall, knees hitting cold stone. The ashes smeared her palms as she gathered them instinctively, as if she could piece destiny back together with soot-stained fingers. She had known this would happen. Somewhere deep in her chest, she had always known. Still, the pain split her open. Outside, the pack prepared for celebration. Lanterns lit the paths. Music drifted from the great hall. Laughter rose like smoke into the evening sky, and Elara, uninvited, unseen, was expected to remain in the servants' wing as always. By midnight it would be over. By midnight bonds would be claimed. Names would be called. Lives would be changed. She pressed her fist to her chest, feeling the ache there, an ache that had lived with her for as long as she could remember. A pull, a whisper, a promise that something somewhere was waiting for her. "You're foolish," she told herself. "Dreaming has never saved you." She stood, wiped her hands on her apron, and returned to her duties. Floors to scrub, dishes to clean, silence to keep. The moon climbed higher. Midnight drew closer. And far beyond the packlands, in a fortress carved into black stone and moonlight, the Alpha King felt it. He froze mid-step in the great hall, the murmur of hundreds falling to a hush as his power flared without warning. His golden eyes burned brighter, his wolf slamming against his chest like a war drum. Wrong. Something was wrong. His mate, his true mate, had not come. The bond tugged, sharp and furious, pulling him east, toward a presence that burned like a star smothered in ash. Anger rolled off him in waves, cracking the marble beneath his boots. "Cancel the ceremony," he growled. Gasps followed him as he turned away from the daze, cloak snapping behind him like a living thing. "Prepare my horse," the Alpha King commanded, voice dark with promise. "Someone has dared to interfere with fate." The moon reached its peak, and in the servants' quarters, As Alara blew out her candle and prepared for another night of being nothing, a knock thundered against the front door of the estate. Slow, deliberate, powerful. The kind of knock that shook destiny awake. By midnight, the Alpha King was at her door. The knock that shattered silence. The knock came again, not polite, not uncertain. It was the sound of command of a man who expected doors to open and worlds to bend. Alara froze in the narrow servants' hall, candle trembling in her grip. The estate had fallen silent, the stepsisters long gone to preen before mirrors and dream of crowns. Servants whispered behind doors, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. Another knock thundered through the manor. Who would come at this hour? Someone murmured. Alara didn't answer, because deep in her chest that familiar ache had exploded into fire. Her knees weakened. The pull, the whisper she had ignored her entire life, now roared like a storm. Every instinct screamed the same impossible truth. He's here. The head steward rushed past her, pale and sweating, fumbling with the great locks. When the doors finally creaked open, moonlight flooded the entrance like a living thing. And there he stood, the Alpha King. He was taller than the stories, broader than any warrior she had ever seen. His presence bent the air itself, power coiling around him like an unseen crown. Dark armor hugged his frame, etched with ancient runes that glowed faintly silver. A black cloak fell from his shoulders, stirring though there was no wind. But it was his eyes that stole breath. Gold, burning, searching. They passed over the steward, the guards, the cowering servants, and locked onto Alara. The world stopped. The candle slipped from her fingers, shattering at her feet. Wax splattered the stone like spilled light. The Alpha King inhaled sharply. There. Her. The bond snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike. Alara gasped as heat tore through her veins, flooding every corner of her being. Her heart thundered, not in fear, but recognition. Tears stung her eyes without warning, her body bowing instinctively before a power it had always known. "My king," the steward stammered, dropping to one knee. "To what do we owe?" the Alpha King said. 2 steps. That's all it took. 2 steps and he stood before her, towering, magnificent, terrifying. The scent of him wrapped around her, pine, smoke, moonstone, something ancient and wild that made her wolf stir for the first time in her life. "You," he said quietly. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "Yes," Alara whispered, though her throat burned. His jaw clenched. "Why were you not at the mating ceremony?" The question landed like a blade. Before she could answer, shrill laughter rang out. Mira and Lysa appeared at the top of the stairs, draped in silk and jewels, eyes gleaming as they took in the scene. "Well," Mira purred, descending slowly, "this is unexpected." Lysa gasped theatrically. "Your Majesty, if we had known you'd visit, we would have prepared." The Alpha King didn't even glance at them. His gaze never left Alara. "Answer me," he said again, softer now, but infinitely more dangerous. Alara swallowed. Her hands shook. Years of silence pressed against her tongue, begging to remain buried. But something in his eyes, something fierce and patient, gave her courage. "My invitation," she said. It was destroyed. The room went deadly still. The Alpha King's power surged, rattling the chandeliers. Frost crept along the stone floor, cracking outward from his boots. "Destroyed," he repeated. Mira laughed nervously. "Oh, that old thing. It was an accident, truly. Servants are so careless these days." Finally, he looked at them. Gold turned molten. "You burned my mate's invitation," he said. "Mate." The word echoed through Alara like a vow. Lisa paled. "Mate?" The Alpha King stepped back, then slowly, deliberately went to one knee before Alara. Gasps ripped through the hall. He took her ash, smudged hand in his gauntleted one, reverent, furious, certain. "By moon and blood," he declared, voice ringing with ancient authority, "I claim what fate has already bound. You are mine." Alara's breath shattered. Tears spilled freely now. "I am nothing," she whispered. "I have no wolf, no rank." His thumb brushed her knuckles, sending heat straight to her soul. "Then I will be the fire that wakes you," he said, "and the crown that protects you." He rose, turning back to the room, power roaring unchecked. "Arrest the Stepsisters," the Alpha King commanded. "For treason against the bond," Mira screamed. Lysa collapsed. And Alara, once invisible, once forgotten, stood at the center of destiny, claimed by the most powerful wolf alive. Outside, the moon burned brighter, And somewhere deep within her, something ancient began to stir, the wolf beneath her skin. The chains clinked softly as Mira and Lisa were dragged away, their screams echoing down the marble halls until even their echoes died. Silence followed. A heavy, reverent silence. Every servant, every guard, every noble in the estate knelt with heads bowed. None dared look directly at Alara, not now that the Alpha King stood at her side, his hand resting possessively at the small of her back. She felt it. That touch. Not ownership, not dominance. Protection. Lift your head, he murmured, meant only for her. Alara obeyed, though her heart thundered so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. His gaze softened when she met it, the gold darkening like molten honey. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Alara," she said. "Alara Moonfall." His lips curved, not into a smile, but something deeper, something like recognition fulfilled. "Of course you are." He turned to the trembling steward. "Prepare her things. She leaves with me." The steward hesitated. "My king, she has no formal training, no wolf manifestation. The journey to Black Spire is—" "I am aware," the Alpha King said coldly, "which is why no harm will come to her. Anyone who forgets that will answer to me." No one spoke again. Minutes later, Alara stood outside the estate for the first time, not as a servant, but as something else, something unnamed and terrifying. A midnight wind tugged at her thin cloak as the Alpha King lifted her effortlessly onto his great black horse. When he mounted behind her, the world shifted. His chest was solid at her back, his warmth seeping through the layers between them. One arm circled her waist, firm and steady, anchoring her as if she belonged there. The gates opened, and the life she had known closed behind her forever. The forest swallowed them whole. Moonlight filtered through towering pines, silver and secretive. The packlands faded as they rode deeper into wild territory, where no banners flew and no laws held sway except the old ones. Alara's body hummed. Her senses sharpened, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of wolves, the heartbeat beneath the Alpha King's armor. Every sound felt too loud, every scent too vivid. She gasped softly, he noticed. "What do you feel?" he asked, voice low. "Everything," she whispered. "It's like I've been asleep my whole life." His arm tightened around her. "You were." The words weren't cruel, they were truth. They rode until the trees thinned and a clearing opened before them. The Alpha King reined in the horse, dismounting first before lifting Alara down as if she weighed nothing. The earth pulsed beneath her bare feet. She swayed. Instantly he was there, hands steadying her shoulders. "Lara," he said sharply now. "Look at me." She did, and cried out. Gold flared in his eyes, brighter than before, blazing with command and devotion both. "You were bound," he said. "Hidden, suppressed. Whoever raised you feared what you are." "What am I?" she asked, voice shaking. He pressed his palm to her chest, right over her racing heart. "You are unawakened royalty," he said. A bloodline thought lost. Her breath caught. "That's not possible." "It is," he said. "Because my wolf has known you since the moment you were born." The ground trembled. Pain exploded through her veins, hot, searing, unstoppable. Alara screamed as she collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest as something tore free inside her. Bones shifted, heat scorch surged. The Alpha King dropped beside her, holding her as she shook, his voice a steady anchor through the storm. "Let it come," he murmured fiercely. "I've got you." Light burst from her skin, silver and blue, swirling like moonfire. The air crackled as an aura snapped outward, flattening the grass in a perfect circle. Her scream turned into a howl, not weak, not broken, ancient. When it ended, Alara lay gasping in his arms, skin glowing faintly, eyes burning silver. "I can feel her," she whispered. "My wolf!" He smiled then, slow, reverent, awed. "She's magnificent," he said. From the shadows beyond the clearing, wolves emerged, dozens, hundreds. They bowed. Alara stared, breathless. "What are they doing?" she asked. The Alpha King rose, pulling her with him, his arm firm around her waist as he faced the gathered wolves. "They are kneeling," he said, pride and wonder lacing his voice, "to their future queen." The moon crowned her in light, and far away in the darkness of Black Spire, enemies stirred, sensing that the balance of power had just shattered. Black Spire rose from the mountains like a living shadow, carved from obsidian stone and ancient magic. The Alpha King's fortress pierced the sky, its towers wrapped in drifting mist. Silver flames burned along the ramparts, responding to Alara's presence as she crossed the threshold, bowing, flaring, welcoming. The gates groaned open. Every wolf within felt it, a pressure, a promise. The Alpha King dismounted first, then turned to Alara. He didn't lift her this time. Instead, he offered his hand. A choice. Her fingers slid into his without hesitation. The moment she stepped onto Blackspire soil, her wolf surged, no longer confused or caged, but proud. The stone beneath her feet glowed faintly, veins of moonlight tracing her steps. Gasps rippled through the gathered court. Elders, generals, alphas from distant territories, all stared, some with awe, some with fear. Impossible, an elder whispered. The Moonfire line ended generations ago. The Alpha King's jaw tightened. It did not. He guided Alara forward, never releasing her hand. It was hunted, buried hidden among servants and ashes. A murmur of unease spread. Alara's heart raced. The weight of their stares pressed against her skin, but she did not bow her head. She had done that her entire life. Not anymore. In the center of the great hall stood the Moon Days, an ancient stone platform reserved for queens. It had been dark for centuries. As Alara approached, it ignited. Silver-blue fire spiraled upward, wrapping around her like a living crown. Power thrummed through her bones, steady now controlled hers. She gasped, not in pain, but in wonder. The Alpha King watched her as if she were the only thing in the world. "Kneel," commanded a voice from the shadows. An elder stepped forward, staff tapping sharply against the stone. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "Until her bloodline is proven, she is nothing more than an awakened Omega," he said. "We cannot." The Alpha King released Alara's hand. The temperature dropped. In one smooth motion, he drew his blade and drove it point, first into the stone between them. The crack thundered through the hall, splitting the days itself. "She kneels to no one," he said, voice deadly calm. "Least of all you." The elder staggered back. Alara placed her hand on the Alpha King's arm. "Let me," she said softly. He looked at her, questioning, protective. She stepped forward alone. "I don't ask for your belief," Alara said, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "I don't ask for your permission." Moonfire flared behind her, wings of light unfolding from her aura. "I ask only for truth." She pressed her palm to the Moon Days. The hall screamed. Light exploded outward, visions tearing through the minds of every wolf present, bloodlines revealed, betrayals unmasked, a child smuggled away in the dead of night while her family burned. Alara collapsed, and the Alpha King caught her. When the light faded, the elders were on their knees. "The Moonfire Queen," they whispered, returned. Alara's breath shuddered. Tears slid down her cheeks, not of fear, but release. The Alpha King lifted her chin. "My queen," he said reverent, "my mate." Their foreheads touched, power humming between them, the bond sealing deeper, stronger. But beyond Blackspire's walls, far beneath the mountains, something ancient and hateful stirred. A rival Alpha, a forgotten god, and a war that would demand not just a king, but a queen forged in fire.